Good afternoon, my name is Stuart Wilson. I'm the client representative for infrastructure and public realm on North West Cambridge. There are 6 client representatives. The rest of them look after buildings. I look after the stuff that's on the outside. So what I'm going to try and do is give you an understanding of a bit more in depth about the project itself. Apologies if we do overlap and repeat. It's kind of inevitable a bit, but I'll try and whiz through this. North West Cambridge is the university's largest ever development at over £1 billion. When it's finished, there'll be 10,000 people living and working there. So it's a substantial undertaking. And if I've got a laser thing there, the line there, which is Huntington Road, is the boundary of the development, the northern boundary of the development. So it kind of goes down there. That's the western edge. That's an existing park and ride car park down there. These are existing ridge and furrow fields, and then the development comes back up down here, back up to Huntington Road. So we'll go into it in a bit more detail further on. That's the school that we've spoken about a couple of times. So why? Rather than launching into what it all is, why? What's it there for? University of Cambridge, widely recognised as a world-changing organisation, and the university hierarchy are very keen to emphasise the changing part of this rather than world-beating or whatever. There's 46 Nobel Prize winners or whatever it is. So it's a significant driver to local, national and international economies. And the main driver behind North West Cambridge is the fact that it's currently being constrained with a lack of affordable accommodation for postgrad students, postdoctoral researchers, permanent staff, and expansion space for research. So whilst I didn't know much about Cambridge before I came to the project, I kind of assumed that the emphasis was on undergraduates, but it really isn't. It's on what comes after. When universities are competing for the best talent in the world, they have to be able to offer at least adequate facilities, and that's a problem with Cambridge. So what is it? As has been touched on, it was Greenbelt land. It was the old research farm for the university, 150 hectares of what was mainly potatoes, I understand. So the biodiversity side of things is improving greatly. 3 new residential neighbourhoods, as has been mentioned, 1,500 new homes for university and college staff, but also 1,500 new homes for private sale. So there's a real mix of both university-driven and private sector-driven housing. 2 collegiate clusters, servicing 2,000 postgrads. And this is important, the 20 years of university research growth. So 100,000 square metres of research and commercial space over 3 clusters, 1 million square feet. And what's left at the end will be 60 hectares of significantly improved open space and public realm. So a local context, that's the development over there. I'm sure that that's a 10-minute cycle ride into the centre of the town. And as I'm sure you probably know, cycling in Cambridge is a key driver to everything that we do. That yellow line is actually a strategic cycle highway into the city centre. Just to give you an idea of context and where these elements are placed, the 3 academic clusters I just highlighted, and this is obviously for the full development, so when the development is complete, and these other bits and bobs show you where the existing facilities are around the city. Obviously West Cambridge is a major part of that. Residential neighbourhoods, 1,500 for sale, 1,500 for key workers, so situated mainly in the north of the site and in the northeast of the site, but also a fair amount in the centre of the site. And this shows you the existing housing there. A real emphasis on both traditional and on modern designs. So one of the things that the university is very keen to make happen is that this isn't a university campus, it's not a university only development, it's just a new district of Cambridge. and there's a great emphasis on making it an integrated part of the city rather than a standalone development on the outside of the site of the city. This one shows the local centre, so we've touched on the elements that go to build the centre of the community, shops, primary school, surgery, community centre, and a hotel. So in the centre there, that is largely that is phase one of the development. And for example, the new Sainsbury's store is going to be going into the centre of that. Collegiate clusters, so located one up there and one down there. 2,000 postgrad students, and then new landscapes and public open space, which I'm really interested in. The western edge, which we've spoken about down here, the lagoons, which I'm sure you'll hear a bit more about, are located on the western edge, and obviously a significant area in the centre of the site which houses the cricket pitch, amongst other things. There are sports pitches up here as well, and down here in the fullness of time will be allotments on the subsequent phases. So landscape's clearly important in Cambridge. It's a beautiful place. The intention is to make Northwest Cambridge a beautiful place, but a slightly more informal place. So the emphasis is much more on wildflower, natural habitats, biodiversity, whilst there will be a reasonable amount of ornamental type landscape. Most of it will be more informal. Project timeline. So, as was mentioned, this has been going for a long time. Not quite sure when in the 1990s it all kicked off, but it's been going for 25 years. The university has worked very closely with the local government and a huge number of stakeholders to get the project this far. The one thing I have found when I've gone to Cambridge is the quality of the stakeholder. The questioning from stakeholders is of the highest level, and you really have to be on your mettle. So after that process, 2009, the land was finally released for development, and in 2013 work started on site. An initial earthworks strip, well, it was essentially a topsoil strip, and a re-levelling of the site into fairly rough platforms for the development. And then in 2013, development started. Sorry, I beg your pardon, I'm ahead of myself. 2028, development complete, so 15 years, a 15-year project. I guess a lot of it depends on the success of phase one and how fast it goes, and it's obviously dependent on the construction market to a certain extent, which is pretty volatile at the moment. Phase one, as we mentioned, phase one is underway. So in terms of phase one, again, we centre it a bit on the school, which is complete. And then we have the housing, which is located up to this part of the site. This is developer housing. Hill and Countryside are the two housing developers selected for those lots. And then we get into the local centre, key worker housing and postgrad housing. And then in the centre there we've got the supermarket, health centre, various other bits and pieces. This down here is the Park and Ride, which is an existing facility, and you can just see the western edge, the first lagoon, which is the first part of the development. So squeeze through that. Sorry, I should have mentioned the community centre. So the community centre is a key building on the site, which also houses a nursery facility as well. The energy centre we referred to, significant provision for sports pitches and play areas. The sports pitches have a large pavilion. The cricket pitches has a large pavilion, and there are two play areas, one smaller one neighbourhood play area, and I mentioned the supermarket, the shops, and a hotel. So the hotel is the last part of phase one that will be constructed. The timeline, so the archaeology completed in 2012, earthworks, as I mentioned, 2013. Infrastructure commenced in 2014, that's been undertaken by Skanska for us. The first building commenced in January 15, and we occupied it in September 15. So the first phase of the school was September, the second phase and completion was Christmas. Someone was asking me earlier about the fact that the school sits in the middle of a construction site. It's an interesting development, and it's working pretty well actually. How we're managing safe access. First occupation for people living in the development will be autumn, late 16. And then we aim to complete the whole of phase 1, which is about 300 and something million pounds worth of work by the end of 2017. So some key drivers, which I've kind of touched on a number of these already, but building community is a bit of a cliche, but it's really important to the university, really important. As I said before, that what they're not looking to do is to have an island site, a maroon site, just a university site. It's an integral part of the city, and there's a huge amount of work gone into trying to achieve that. So traditional housing and as well as contemporary housing, a whole range of housing from high density up to 5-storey, low density, detached terraced houses. Quality public realm, high quality public realm is really important to the university, and it varies. So in the local centre, it's real high quality natural stone paving, big trees, high quality furniture, artworks, all that kind of stuff. On the western edge, much more informal and much wilder. Pitches and pavilions, we mentioned these. So you can see when we go through this whole list of stuff, in phase 1, the intention is to put everything in that's required to provide the heart of the subsequent development and completion of the whole project. Oops, I think we're in the hotel, always comes last. Sustainability. So we mentioned Code for Sustainable Homes Level 5 and also BREEAM. These are key drivers, and an awful lot of what has come out in terms of design and subsequently construction comes from the university's adoption of these two key items. The anticipation of climate change. One thing which surprised me, again, not being from Cambridge, I was looking at the rainfall figures for Cambridge, which range from 380 millimetres to 650 millimetres per annum, which is like, in old money, just over a foot. It's real low rainfall, and I think the challenge is in the future. Obviously, it makes sense to recycle water. However, the availability of water, it must be a key driver to us. Domestic waste. So uniquely, I think, in Britain, on any scale, all of the waste streams are collected underground. So a series of these 5 cubic metre bins all around the site. I think there's 150 in phase 1 in different waste streams to collect waste. The district heating network we've mentioned, and district heating is provided to the whole of the development, including the private residential. And the aim to provide up to 20% renewables across the development, mainly from photovoltaics. And effective water management. So this is kind of what we're focusing on today. So in terms of water, and I guess this will get touched on in some more detail as we go on, but I think as already been referenced, the intention has been to manage the control of surface water across the site, but also to manage the runoff from site and then further downstream from the development. So clearly we have constraints that mean that water running out of the site has to run out at the same rate as it did when it was a potato farm. So there are some significant challenges to make sure that this is adhered to. But then obviously from our point of view, what we want to do is to collect a significant amount of this water to reuse as landscape irrigation, washing machines, toilet flushing as well. So there are some significant benefits to managing this this water. So there's the proportion, and then this, we mentioned already the 80 litre target, which, as I understand it, is potable water. So the non-potable water is on top of that, but nonetheless it's a significant target. So as I understand it, when the scheme is finished, it will be the largest non-potable water network in the UK. It is an adopted network. We're working very closely with Cambridge Water on this, and have done for a long time. It's a significant investment from the university to install both the treatment centre and the network for this water. Every house has 2 connections and 2 meters, and it's a big deal. So to summarise, vision, which hopefully says what I've just been trying to say, create a new district and extension to the city centred around a mixed academic and urban community. So that kind of says it a bit better than I was trying to garble it, but it really is important to the university and to everyone in Cambridge. Long-lasting and ambitious. One of the things that I found interesting, although probably not surprising, is the timescale the university looks on. It's much longer timescales for projects than I'm used to dealing with. Although I did work for historic royal palaces, and this was a slightly longer timescale. But this is interesting, where an awful lot of the stuff is designed to 120 year life, which you wouldn't normally see. So that's interesting, and to achieve it in a sustainable way. So we've spoken about the key constrictions, if you like, that the university has adopted to prove its sustainability, to demonstrate its sustainability. But these have governed design across the site, and governed the way that the project is being delivered. So I'll finish with 3 or 4 pictures to give you an artist's impression of how marvellous it's going to look. It's going to look that marvellous at the end of this year. So we've got quite a lot to do. That's Caithness stone in there, which hopefully they're quarrying at the moment. Key worker housing. Sorry, that last one was Market Square, which is right at what we call the local centre of the site. That's the Sainsbury's store there, you can see. Key worker housing to the north of the phase 1 of the site, and the western edge. There's always a picture with ducks either on the water or flying through the sky. We haven't got both on this one, but it's obviously winter by the time that we're going to get this ready. That construction there is an artwork, the Fata Morgana Tea House, which is a focal point to the first part of the western edge. This is the lagoon, which has already been constructed, and this gives you a better idea. So that's where the tea house will sit over there. Apologies for the shaky hands. And you can see the area where the subsequent western edge water bodies will be formed. So that's the school. Sports pitches up there. This is the entrance off Huntington Road where the children come into the school, and that works pretty well at the moment. This area up here is the residential housing, which will start in April. And then we get into, this is the main highway from Madingley Road down the bottom here. So this area up here, sorry, up there, that's the new road that's going to be tarmacked in March. And off we go up round the top. This is the veteran oak, the only tree on the site, which has been very carefully looked after, and back out through the adoptable, what will be the adoptable highway. And that just gives a slightly, well, this is from the north, so I guess it gives you a better idea of the lagoon. And you can see there's a big swell across there. There are swells that run down the sides of the roads. You can see another big one that runs down here and through there. So there's one that comes in there. There's one that comes in there. And another one that comes in there. And then the overflow. So there's a large amount of capacity here for overflow before it discharges into what we call the two-stage channel, and the wash pit brook is further down here. So there's a large attenuation capacity there, but there's also a large attenuation capacity on the other side, on the M11 side. And I guess that's it. I'm sorry I've garbled it a bit because I'm aware you've heard some of the stuff that I've said already, but happy to expand a bit more in the 3.5 minutes.
Thank you. Really interesting. Any quick points of clarification before Stuart says we? Please remember to, if you've got any decent questions, to keep for the discussion session later on. But fire away if you've got a.
Keep for the engineers.
Hi, just a quick question.
There's a microphone coming if you don't mind. If you could tell us who you are and who you work for as well, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Lindsay Ines. I'm from Ardent Consulting Engineers. Do you think that the university's sort of longer term view enabled better standards to be delivered on the development and perhaps more sort of acceptance of innovative techniques? I mean, I work with developers quite a lot, and sometimes you've got different teams involved in different stages, you know, planning, detailed design, and a lot of them don't want to, not all of them, but some don't want to look at the future because that's not in their sort of driver.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the university's got a 120-year viewpoint on the development, let's say, and most developers might have a much shorter attention span than that. I think the other thing is the university is an extremely democratic organisation, and it listens to everybody for a long time, and quite rightly, and it then considers very carefully before it moves on. So this I've found very different in that everybody is given a lot of chance to express their feelings, and the drivers, if you like, are then, I think, have been honed over a long period of time, since the mid-1990s. You can imagine that the site was extremely sensitive at that time. It was an agricultural enterprise that was about to be covered in development. So I think it's only by having the long-term view, and also by, and what I again found surprising as an outsider to it was it's not a university campus or town or entity. It's part of Cambridge. So that's really important, because by saying that, when things come on into the mix that relate to the rest of Cambridge, they're more likely to be taken on board, rather than just a developer might go, well, I'm okay and my development's okay, and I'm doing perhaps the minimum. Sometimes the university does the maximum that it can, because it's in a unique position. Does that help?
Good. Thank you, Stuart.
Am I done? Thank you very much.